Hi, Jason Adelman, Senior Vice President, Brand Innovators Strategy Group.
Hi, I'm Scott Bowden, Senior Director for Data and AI with Microsoft.
Hey Scott, how are you?
Very good, very good.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Brand Innovators. This has been a great conference.
Yeah, absolutely. Microsoft has really actually been a really big part of it. So we thank you so much for being at our AI for Brand Marketers Summit here at beautiful Paramount. And they've been a gracious host of ours all advertising week as well. We bring our community here. So you just got off the stage of a great chat with the CMO of Samsung. What were some of your takeaways from that conversation?
It's interesting. So that was an interesting conversation because most of this has been really AI targeted at marketers and different things like that. But this was really a little bit of that, but also talking about products and consumer adoption and how consumers look at AI and how they use it and how they're building things in. And it's AI working in the background so it's seamless. There's so much AI out there. Like, I've been at Microsoft a long time, but the little red squiggly under a word that's misspelled is AI. That's machine learning.
Right, exactly.
It just, people start using it. It's interesting as you see how fast technology is moving.
Yeah. One of the things that I thought was interesting is how are they marketing to people who are just the common consumer versus people who are actually very much in the tech business, right? Because someone like yourself is, really into these things and you take it very seriously. You are maybe not the exact consumer profile because
Exactly, and that's one thing that I try to do is when you're in the I live and breathe like AI and data. Like I talk to customers about it all the time, internal Microsoft. But also when you talk to people who are not technologists. So my wife's a professor at a college here in New York City, and I talk to a lot of her other professors and even sometimes her classes. And in taking these concepts of AI and putting in terms of what a non-technical person can understand and what it brings to them, I think it's really key. It helps us as technology people just to put stuff in simple terms that you can understand.
Absolutely.
And it's not Terminator or Skynet going live or whatever else, killer robots needing robot insurance. Think about it in proper terms.
That's right. Well, let's get smarter this morning here, and we're really happy that you could sit down with me for a few more minutes and talk about the world of AI. And I think there's so many areas of the business that we're focused on more than others, maybe some that we need to be focusing more that we're not. You are, a certified expert in this space, senior director of AI, data, Azure at Microsoft. Tell me a little bit about where you sit within the organization and what you're most excited about happening in the work that you're doing right now.
Sure. So I've been at Microsoft now about 27 years. So when I started Microsoft, it was, we just had a few products, but we're right now today, I work with customers. So I manage a team of architects and we work directly with media entertainment customers, different brands, sports leagues, sports teams. And we really discuss how to think about AI in use cases and how to really bring that to life. And so that's kind of my day job of what I do day in and day out. And it's very interesting. So even though I've been at Microsoft a long time, I've had a lot of different jobs, but it's true. The speed of innovation, when people ask what I do, what I talk about to customers now was science fiction 3 or 4 years ago. And I just came from Microsoft has this big developers conference called Build. I just went to that 2 weeks ago. And it feels like 12 months ago is like the Stone Age with all the tools around, not just these, AI models that everyone talks about, but the tools to build solutions. It's in all my time, in my job at Microsoft and in the industry, I've never seen innovation move so fast.
Yeah. So a lot of the conversation in AI is about content creation. Mm-hmm. But there's another part of the marketing business that I know you've spoken about previously, and that's the world of data and how AI is impacting the way marketers are utilizing data. And I thought that was super interesting, and I think viewers would really like to get a little handle on this.
Sure. So if you think about, there's two sides. What it really gets all the press is, I can go into Dolly and it can create this information. Hey, will Sora eventually make videos for me? But really, if you think about it, AI can help in different ways. And one thing on the flip side, there's so much data out there. And especially in the side of marketing, all those datas are in silos. And how do you think about it? And really, the number one use case over the last 12 months, not just in general with the enterprise, has been putting ChatGPT on your own data. So being able to interact with data. I know I showed a demo the other day of a chatbot we worked with MBA on about basketball stats. But also there's other things like, hey, we're going to bring all this data together. And now, how do we build a dashboard? If you think about it today, hey, I want to look at quarter over quarter, the impact, and hey, maybe I just dropped a new ad. What's happening in the first 24-week, month? How's that compared to something else? And you might say, oh, I need a report on that. So I'm going to go down the hall and I'm going to talk to Diane or Steve and say, can you build this for me? And maybe a week later, they'll give me this dashboard. But now it's, hey, I can go into Power BI Copilot and say, hey, in natural language, here's what I want to see. And then could say, hey, what are the main drivers for for some metric, and it can give me an answer back. So being able to interact with the data in a natural language, I think is a big game changer for end users. The dirty little secret about AI is it all matters on the data. So no one wants to talk about data transformation, but now hey, I want to power this with AI. How do we bring all that data around there so we could actually use it in an easy way, so it's not hidden away somewhere?
Right. I mean, we would call you an architect in your career, and it sounds like the AI architects are probably going to be, would say, working even more closely with marketing teams in that respect. Where do those conversations start happening internally, where the marketers can really understand the power of what you're being able to build for them?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because one is you have all the data, but then you start thinking about the doorway that AI opens up. So really what you'll see is, from a marketing standpoint, what do you need? What type of tools, what type of insights? And then, hey, how can we build, whether it's a dashboard or some type of bot or something you could ask questions of. That bot that I showed was actually, you're asking a question. So, hey, what was Larry Bird's 3-point average in finals playing against the Lakers? That's actually taking natural language to a SQL query, finding the data, bring it back and formatting it. So all that needs to be hidden from the marketer. So it really is, what's your use case? How do you want to surface this insights to people? And then what's the back end data that makes it happen? Because all these models are trained on data, but that gives you a lot of ways on how it can respond and reason. But what really makes the secret sauce is how to use it on your data that's not out in the public.
Yeah. So you just brought up the MBA, and you guys have some incredible enterprise partnerships, and truly leading the way in the industry. As a creative marketer at one of these partnership companies like the MBA, you have ideas, and you have maybe not the education about what is actually doable.
Right.
So where do you come in as a partner to one of these entertainment, media, or sports partners to help them take an idea to reality?
Yes. So I would say the last 12 months, that's a lot that I've been doing. I just was at a customer yesterday, and we kind of had this conversation. When I think about Microsoft, I kind of think of Microsoft as, we're a bunch of plumbers. Like, we're plumbers and general contractors. We're really good at building tools. But at the end of the day, the customer's the architect and the designer. So usually what I want to do is I want to go in hey, how could this impact your business? Because I also want to talk to the business, not the IT guys. What do you need as a marketer? And then what are the potential use cases? And now when we have these, I like to look at two metrics. I like to say, okay, what's the business impact if we could deliver that? And then I also like to look at degree of difficulty. So, I, especially early on, let's get some first wins, some things. Let's not go for the moonshot. Hey, I think that, I'm not sure how we're going to do it, because this is all very new. We have some patterns and best practices. But yes, this is within the realm. Let's knock this out and get some value add. Let's not go for the the moonshot project that would be super powerful, but let's see if we can do it and how long it's going to take. So that's really what we do. Like, hey, we're going to spend a couple hours. Maybe we talk about 20 potential different use cases. Let's find the top 3 that you agree on would have an impact that we could maybe implement very quickly. And then once we identify that, depending on the customer and how our relationship, right now we have a code with going with a customer. We have a use case. We said, hey, let's work 3 to 4 weeks together. Our developers, your developers, let's bang out a prototype to see if we could do this. And then like, hey, this is successful. Now let's think about moving this very quickly. And that's something else. This stuff happens quick. It's not like, you're developing products for 18 months.
Yeah. It really sounds like you're very much supporting the foundation of your partners, and your team is critical to that. I'm curious, how do you determine what partners you're going to either work with or approach? How do those relationships begin?
I think from, there's a lot of networking in here. So we have since I sit in the field of Microsoft, we work with a lot of customers, and we'll talk with customers. There are certain customers that have a very deep Microsoft relationship. There are other ones that maybe we don't have a deep relationship, but they can kind of see us as an AI leader. That brings up the conversation. And then how do you scale it? We also talk to them like, hey, do you have people, do you have the engineers and developers to build this in-house? If not, we have a set of partners that we can bring in. It depends on the use case. I have one use case right now that, hey, this is a great, very quick way we can get this very up and quickly with one partner. Somebody else, it's very, it's very complicated. So I might, for that, go with like a big global solution integrator like, a PwC or an EY. So it really depends, and kind of have a network of partners that we know, and we know their strengths and weaknesses.
It's interesting. Yesterday, you shared the MBA examples of how you are able to really provide these recaps for the customer to check in and see how the game is going. Very interesting, I think very timely as far as how people are multi-screen enjoyment of sports. Besides the sports world, which I think is phenomenal for what you're doing, are there other big consumer categories that you're looking into?
Oh yeah. So if you think about it, you have there's sports and there's media, all the media stuff, but also straight up, you think about retail and hospitality, how they can actually engage with their customers. So part of the AI too is how do you interact with your customers. So, and part of it is, I'm kind of the guy, like, I like efficiency. I'm a New Yorker. Yeah. So like, a self-checkout, a bot, I can get stuff done very quickly. But how do you find information, whether it's booking a vacation, booking a cruise, going to an amusement park, even thinking about internal things like, hey, what does my healthcare plan cover? How can I do this with my 401k? Hey, I need to request some resources internally. How does that work? Or, it really varies. I think really comes down to the customer, what they want to do. We have, the way I think about it now is if a year ago, it was very early days. And now like the engines are built, and we have tools built around that to actually deploy this. And it's kind of like, okay, here's your engine, here's the tools. Let's build the NASCAR, Formula One car, whatever. And it's very interesting. You can build things quickly and test it. Yeah. Like the NBA thing came together very fast.
Wow. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to seeing how that keeps rolling out. That's very exciting. You brought something up on stage, and I just thought I had to ask you because it kind of a bell went off in my head. Kind of in a, wow, I didn't even really think about this, which was you brought up about the conversations companies actually need to have with their internal lawyers. Yeah. And I said, that is not being talked about in our industry events as much as it probably should. So I guess the question I can formulate on this topic would be, how do enterprise companies think about collaborating with their internal legal teams to get through those hurdles that undoubtedly need to be tackled probably at the jump?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things. What we've really seen, and I mostly play in the enterprise space, is a lot of enterprises actually put together a governance council. So here's the AI council. That's really holistic, that they say, hey, let's bring these use cases to the AI council. And hey, is this something we feel comfortable with? And part of our job is, my job as a technology person is to supply them with information about, hey, here's what we think about privacy. If something's in the cloud, it's not going anywhere. You put your data there. We're not gleaning that and training our own models or sharing it with OpenAI. Giving you all of that, information. But then, especially when something goes live, especially if it's customer facing, that's where we have to talk to maybe that brand's lawyers, maybe even that division. And okay, how do we sit down now and make sure that they're comfortable? And that comes into explaining AI and the use cases in simple, normal terms that aren't, super geeky or super down in the weeds, and they give them the level of comfort that you actually have. So that's actually part of the process. Now, it's one thing if it's an internal IT rolling out Microsoft Copilot to help you with Teams. It's a whole other thing that you want a customer-facing AI that could go to potentially millions of customers. And then how do you put all the checks and balances in there? One thing we always think about is content moderation. So you always think that people are trying to do bad things. There are great, if you think about it, my mother had a pacemaker, right? Every night she went to bed and sent the data, off to the doctor. They could track all that kind of stuff. But you remember there are bad actors out there. So imagine someone getting a text saying, hey, I just hacked your past pacemaker or insulin pump, send me 10K and Bitcoin, I'm going to turn it off, right? You have to think about that. So when you design these solutions, you have, and now that we think about Gen AI, let's take a look at inputs and outputs, and something that's newer. We have a content moderation to look across, sexual, self-harm, violence, and there's a rating from like 0 to 4, 0 to 8, and you can design that for the app. So hey, is this targeting, this demographic? So if this is really for, so maybe it's an educational product for K through 12, or even, that'll be different than, hey, this is something I'm building into like an adult video game kind of thing, where hey, whatever shoot 'em up game that you see in a billboard here in Times Square, it's different. So you really have to think about, both sides of that from a security and content management standpoint.
Interesting. Yeah, I really think it's an area that is probably not so sexy to talk about on the stages, but it's something that's incredibly important, and I'm glad you brought it up this morning, and I'm glad I was able to ask you about it today. I would say my last question for you, Scott, is if a year ago was the Stone Age, as you call it in our industry, compared to where we were and where we are today, what do you hope takes place over the next 12 months to help you and your teams be more successful?
I think I would say the last 12 months has been a lot of exploration. Really what I think is going to happen over the next 6 to 12 months is these ideas, these proof of concepts that brands have been building are really going to start being deployed now. So we're really going to start getting, the feedback and the lessons learned. Because we find out that people have great ideas, they do things that we don't even expect. And also it's just reaching with if you think about it, everyone's talking about large language models. We now have small language models that can run on a device, that doesn't have to run in the cloud. What does that open up? When do you use where? So the use cases that we're going to see are going to be very interesting. But I think it's going to become more prevalent of like, hey, we're actually going to deploy stuff, and now we're going to have real lessons learned and best practices and understand how to do these things very quickly. It's really an exciting time.
Well, I definitely feel smarter by talking to you. Thank you again, Scott Bounds from Microsoft. Really appreciate you being here.
Great, thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks, bye-bye.